Just getting the go-ahead. So now, we're ready. Mayor Panko? Good evening and welcome to the September 9th Committee of the Whole meeting. My name is Jennifer Miller. I will be your chair this evening. Councillor Quinn has sent her regrets. If you would please pause and reflect while I read the land acknowledgement. On September 9th, 2024, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. And we are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. So I'll call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. And we have a motion for approval of the agenda, moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that the September 9th Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Do we have any disclosures of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, we have no approval of minutes. And I'd like to welcome our delegation. We have Caitlin Murray, Housing Manager, and Brooke Coots, Community Support Services Manager for the County of Lanark. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Come ahead up to the podium.
Thank you for having me. I'm here to speak, just give an overview of 2023 within Lanark County. So we'll start with 188 Chambers Street. Was opened in June of 2023. We have 5 RGI units there, 2 fully accessible and 3 barrier-free. This was paid for with Phase 4 of the Provincial Social Services Relief Fund in the amount of $1,635,000. We also began construction of 44 Chambers Street, where we partnered with CareBridge Community Supports. They received funding in the amount of $742,000 in Phase 5 Social Services Relief Fund, as well as $2.9 million municipal funding. And there's 28 RGI units, and 6 affordable units, and they have agreed to a 40-year commitment.
Brooke, could I just ask you not to use acronyms?
Oh, RGI. Sorry, absolutely. So RGI is rent geared to income, so it's 30% of the income goes towards their rent, which is done through Lanark County. Then we'll move to the centralized waiting list. So the centralized waiting list is the wait list for our rent geared to income units across Lanark County. So on the wait list, there was 465 applicants. There were 254 new applicants in 2023, and 32 of those were special priority. And special priority are victims of domestic abuse or human trafficking. And they receive a priority on the wait list, which prioritizes them at the top of the centralized waiting list with the other special priority. We were able to offer 50 units, and 19 of those units went to our special priority category. And we had 48 unit turnovers with an additional 11 units from our Harvey Street fire. The wait list had a decrease in 10% from 2022. That's due to a change in legislation which limited the amount of refusals you can have when an offer is made for housing. It went from 3 to 1. So if you refuse any units, you are removed from the wait list, which does impact our wait list quite a bit. As well as we have a staff who worked quite diligently on cleaning up the wait list to make sure that the reflection of who's there is what is actually the real need. Moving along to supports provided. 4 households received the homeownership down payment investment, which is a program that provides them with down payment for their homes. So they would have been renting in Lanark County and then moving along the housing spectrum into home ownership. And we invested $103,000 into that program. We had 26 households that received Renovate Lanark funding in the amount of $284,000, and that is a program that provides a loan for required household repair. And then we also had 252 individuals who received a portable housing benefit, and Lanark County invested $284,000 into that, as well as 27 residents who received the OFI housing allowance in the amount of $62,000. And these are just different types of rent supports that go to them from different pots of funding. And then our homeless response team, they had 116 new referrals to the by name list, 62 housed off the by names list. They provided 120 backpacks from our backpack program. There were over 475 gift cards provided. 341 individuals were helped by our after hours homeless assistance program. And then they also ran a very successful rural housing conference in the fall. I believe that is the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so
for
much.
having me.
Thank you, and thanks for your good work in Smiths Falls. We really appreciate it. I'll turn to my colleagues now and see if anyone has questions or comments. Councillor Robinson?
Great presentation. I just have one quick question, and it's probably going to sound stupid. What is portable housing?
So the portable housing program allows the renter to move with their funding. So in some rental programs, it goes directly to the landlord and is contingent on them being in one specific place. But the portable allowance goes to them and they can move however they see fit within Lanark County.
Thanks.
Councillor McGuire?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks a lot for coming. I appreciate the great presentation, and it's great to see what's happening in Smith Falls. I'm wondering, when it comes to the list, for the people that moved into the new units in Smith Falls, do we know how many of them were from Smith Falls to begin with, or where they come from on the list?
Through the chairs. Mm-hmm. So we could gather that information. It's not something we would typically gather ourselves, but if that's something you were interested in knowing, we could absolutely pull that information for you.
Yeah, I'd love to see it, because I know Smith Falls has been doing a lot to create more units, and we've got more housing per capita in our community than other communities in Lanark County. So it would be interesting to see how many people from Smith Falls are actually helped by these units and what kind of a dent it makes in our housing affordability problems. So,
Thank you. Other questions? Mayor Panko?
Thanks, Caitlin and Emily and Brooke, for all the work you're doing to try and get our people housed and keep them housed. I was looking back at the 2021 or 2022 report, and that time there was like a longer wait list, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 713 people on centralized wait list. So is it the decline partially, as you mentioned earlier, related to the change in provincial regulations, but I guess part of it would be people getting housed. Is there other reasons why we're maybe seeing less people on the centralized wait list?
Well, I mean, ultimately the large drop would be through our staff members going through and really checking to see the need is still there. It's often when someone comes into homelessness, they fill out RGI applications for everywhere. You know, someone from Ottawa may apply here, or Kingston, and our residents would do the same. And then they may, find a solution and then be sitting stagnant on our list and not actually in need. But it is a huge, the change from 3 offers to 1 is a huge reason for that decrease, because prior to, we were seeing a lot of refusals. So they would stay at the top and then have a refusal. And SPP, like our special priority, received more refusals. So going from that to 1, it has impacted those on the wait list, because they aren't quite in the spot to move, and they unfortunately refuse, and then they are removed. from the wait list.
Okay, a couple of follow-ups, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I suppose, so the number we're seeing now is probably very valid. These are people who have been on the list waiting for a period of time. Do you know what the wait time is now, say for a one-bedroom?
I did get our updated. So there's currently 410 on the wait list as of right now, with 29 SPP, or our special priorities. We have 198 people waiting for units in Smith Falls, and we have housed 60 so far. The average wait times vary drastically depending on where you're looking and what you're looking for. So it's, it really can average from, 3 to 8 years, depending on if you're, really specific for like a ground floor unit, or you want one specific building in Almont and you have to wait for turnover to get them. So we can pull those numbers, but it's not a great.
It varies.
Yeah.
Okay. And for the special priority, people who are really in a critical situation, I assume you're able to manage and find most of those people, women, families.
Yeah, we
quicker.
We work closely with our community agencies to support those on the wait list as well. So most of them are working with Victim Services or Lanark County Interval House. And unfortunately, they still have a wait. It's not necessarily a quick, they're not offered quickly, but they are prioritized to the top. So definitely in a faster turnaround than others.
Okay. And final question, just what more should we be doing? What more could we be doing to help?
That's a great question. More affordable housing is always great. Supporting our private markets to continue to offering rent supports. I know that there's currently, offering for affordable housing development to have property tax and
Abatement, yeah.
Yes, sorry. But there's the property tax and the development charges, sorry. Those types of things are incredibly supportive when people are looking to build. We are constantly working with our private markets to encourage them to continue to when they build, to build affordable units within their buildings.
Okay, well, thank you. The good news is we've put policies in place for a lot of stuff. We just believe there's the opportunities to apply it, which has happened already, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Just on that question, as a member of the planning committee, I know that there's certain things that we can do to leverage affordable housing, i.e. if they're looking for relief on another aspect of the plan, then, and Carl can speak to that too, as well, talking that. But that's one mechanism. It doesn't produce a great number of units, but it's something.
Every unit makes a difference to one person. So.
Yes, Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a really good, but it's just a snapshot. The staff put on an annual report that's rich with information right across the county, and it's on the website. I would encourage council or anybody interested to read the full report. It's they do so much more than this. I mean, this is terrific, but there's a lot more detailed information. I encourage everybody to look it up and read it.
Thank you. CIO Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is probably a good time to remind the committee that the town does have a memorandum of understanding in place with CareBridge Community Support to develop 14 Robinson Avenue. That's a piece of town-owned property. We did reignite that discussion last week, and so they're working actively on a site plan, number of units, density, and other planning matters. So, so CareBridge was there along with their builders, so we'll have hopefully an update on that project into the autumn. I think the challenge right now is assembling funding to make it happen. And as you will recall, the one on Chambers Street took a lot of collaboration to bring the money together, so that same process has to be replicated in this case. But the town has made a significant offer of land for that project, so we hope to see some progress soon.
Good. Thank you. And thanks again for being here. We appreciate the update. Thank you. And just a quick note for those watching from home, if you see flashes or hear clicks, we do have a member of the press here today taking some stock photos, and so it's not your imagination, so thanks for your patience with us. Okay, CAO and directors reports.
Yes, we have two this evening. First from our Director of Corporate Services, Paul Dower.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of council. I just wanted to update everybody on the progress of our year end for 2023. Of course, we're a little bit later this year, but the audit has started. We're a full weekend. So we're into the point where we're supplying samples for the auditors do their testing, and we have not run into any problems yet. It seems to be moving along quite smoothly. We have confirmation for an interim audit for 2024, the week of November the 25th, and we're just waiting for confirmation for the final audit for 24, the work to be done either the last week of March or first week of April. So we're just waiting for confirmation on that with the goal of trying to have next year's audit wrapped up by the end of May. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you very much.
Yep.
And just a quick update on the conversation about the LaSalle Causeway. So we're meeting with the Rideau mayors and CAOs this Thursday to continue that discussion and then talk about next steps in our advocacy efforts to make sure boats can freely flow through the causeway. Ideally next spring, the canal opens. So we'll have an update after that meeting to share with the committee at that time.
Thank you. Okay. No committee of the whole consent reports. We'll move into our priority issues, and Director Dower, you are up again, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just here. I wanted to discuss bring forward the July budget monitor. As council's aware, the structure for reporting back to council on the implementation of the budget is the first report at Q2 and then monthly till the end of the year. A couple weeks ago, I presented June's budget monitor report with the intention of coming back on this meeting with the capital. Unfortunately, with all the work to be done for year end and the other pressures, I had to prioritize. So I'm moving that to the next council meeting. So I won't be presenting on the capital tonight. So my apologies for that. The other item I would point out is that one of the pieces that came out from the June budget monitor was one of the big pieces that had to be done was to distribute the insurance. So the insurance has come in. We've received the invoice and have paid it fully, and it's sitting in an inventory account that will disperse amongst the various portions. Again, I had to prioritize and move that reconciliation, so that'll come on the next budget monitor report. The only reason I say that is because you're going to see a bit of a repetition here. That one of the items that outstanding would be insurance. So that hopefully just kind of moves the presentation along a little bit quicker. So if you turn to your Appendix A, I've just touched on the highlights from that, and again, there are going to be some repetitions from the last budget monitor report. And hopefully we can shine a little bit of a different light on it tonight. Property taxes, we're at 97% of the way through the year. And at the end of the sheet, it does kind of break that down to show what that would be like at the seventh month through the year, which is 58% of the way through the year. It's just to kind of reconcile it so that it doesn't overinflate our revenues. 97% should be 100%, and that would be right. That would be the other 3% would be the supplemental billings that come through the year. So all the growth that comes through MPAC, that'll be recognized in September, and that would account for the last 3% to make that 100%. So not the next budget monitor report, but that should reconcile up to 100%. Payments in lieu is at 99%, which is quite good, but there actually is a little bit of outstanding. One is the heads and beds charge, which generally comes end of August, September, and then the OPP payment generally comes in October every year. So we'll see that reconciling up to 100% later in the year. Operating grants and provincial offenses. We've received 2 of the 4 OMPF payments, and then the provincial offenses revenue. Now, generally, I'm used to seeing that come in around the third quarter, towards the end of the third quarter, usually in and around October. And if that pattern follows at Smith Falls, then I'd say that that's when we're gonna see that that number come up. But we don't have any expectation that we won't see 100% of that budgeted amount by the end of the year. Mayor and council. It hasn't really changed too much. It went up 16,000 or 5% from June, and it really includes the same things. That there's some of the lines are just a little bit underutilized, but it's not too far off. 58% of the way through the year, 51%. That's not too far off. Community programs. The big piece of that is the hospital donation that has been sent. It's been done, but it's showing in June. I'm sorry, it's showing in August in the GL. So that'll come in the next. Report, and that'll increase that number to 307,000 or 71%. So the next budget monitor, that line should be 71% of the way through the year. Administration took a little bit of a funny turn. It went from 25% of the budget utilized down to 18%. And we had a bit of an anomaly in July in that we recognized more revenue than we did expenses. So that kind of decreased that. We don't think that trend's going to continue, that the expenses will catch up by the end of the year. But we did, some of those revenues we did receive in advance. IT services really hasn't changed much. It's moved up just a couple percents from last month, and it's on track at this point. That's one of the pieces we want to make sure that we have in hand as we come to council with some reports in the future with an IT strategy moving forward. And there's certainly going to be some pieces that we want to be able to manage some fairly larger costs. So we're glad that we're able to keep a good handle on that portion of the budget. Library, we saw a $45,000 increase over June to arrive at 54%. So pretty close to our 58% target. Transfers to capital from operations is on target as per budget. Under protective services, police services, I really didn't say too much at that point. They're on target, and I know they're reporting back to the board. So I feel fairly comfortable with that. Fire services, 44%. Again, a number of GL accounts are currently below target, so we should see an increase in that as we go further through the year. And by lot 48%. In June, it was around 44%, so it's increased. Some of those fees that we've been waiting to come in, expenses have come in, so we've come closer to targets. Community services, administration, 47%. Again, this one's probably due to the insurance costs, and once we get that distributed, that should true up a bit. The next three, parks, community facilities, and Hillcrest cemeteries, they're a little bit over the 58% budget, 72% for parks. The required repairs were higher than targets, and then there was one line that was under budgeted, and that would be hydro for the athletic fields. So we're going to see an increase. That line is going to go over, and we're going to adjust that in 2025. That one line going over is not going to put us in a bad way as a corporation as a whole. It's just one small piece, but I did want to point that out to council. Community facilities, again, it really comes down to the repairs that they're higher than targets. This one, though, recreation partner revenues are to come in Q4, so we should see some more revenues that'll true those numbers up and balance them out. And then Hillcrest cemeteries, it's just a little bit over. The plot sales just haven't been as high as what the targets were, the projected targets. Shared services is on track at 58%.
Dr. Dauber, can I interrupt you for a second? We have a question from
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wondered, do you want to wait to the end for questions, or do you want them as you go?
Whatever council wishes.
Well, I just had one, but I can wait too. All right. On the parks, would you think, or do you know if that there was a pent up demand for some of those repairs, and so would that be that we're trying to get a lot done, or is it unexpected to be that at that number?
I would have have to refer to the director on that, except I do know through some conversations, there have been some repairs that have been, maybe could have been done in the past that need to be done this year.
Okay.
So I would say a good portion of that is a catch up to the repairs to make sure that the parks are in good working order. But I will follow up with the Director of Community Services and come back on the next budget report with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Crossing guards is absolutely no change. Of course, it's still in the summer, and it won't change again on the next budget monitor. And then the shared services is on track. Economic development did come up a little bit from June. There are still a number of small GL accounts that are below target, and we're going to see the salaries increase as we have a new member of the team coming on board. So we should see that true up. Small Business Advisory Center, it hasn't changed since June, and it's still waiting on that grant. I'm sorry, I can't remember what the acronym for MITT is, but it's to do with the small business grant, and it's the timing of that due to the timing of the reporting back to the ministry. And now we're waiting. The ministry has accepted the reporting, and we're just waiting for a fairly significant amount of money to come in for that grant. Heritage House, 31% up a little bit since June. Insurance costs is, again, one of those pieces that's playing a role in there. And then underutilized accounts or accounts that are just below targets at this point. In Downtown Business Association, that's another one that will come to at the bottom. They get their whole tax levy in one shot. So the revenues recognized all in one shot. So that's why it's showing a revenue amount. So I've adjusted that in the bottom to show more of a realistic picture of where we're going to be at as far as the surplus goes. So we'll touch on that in the end. Planning is on track, 54%. They were below in June. And so some of those expenses they were expecting to come in have come in. Conservation Authority is fully utilized. It's gone over a little bit because there was an extra charge to do with the planning feature within a Conservation Authority, but we're talking a couple $100. It's not very significant. Building inspections, there's the permits as of July are lower than anticipated or what had been budgeted, and I believe that the building department brought a report recently talking about the revenues and where their state of building permits is at. Public Works hasn't changed too much. It was around 33% last month. Now it's around 37%. And again, it's the same story as last month in that a lot of the expenses come in the summer. A lot of the work maintenance activities happen during the summer as well. There's a fairly large debenture payment that comes out later in the year, and it's a one shot per year payment. So that should adjust that out. Engineering is at 60%, just a hair over, but it's such an insignificant amount that I've just marked them as on track. Environmental services, 43%. A couple of the accounts are low in the first half of the year, but there hasn't been much of a change. I think there was just a few $100 change since June. And the airport, that's 53%. The only thing that really kind of knocks it at 58%. If the insurance had been distributed, then we'd be right on target at 58%. And then the last two, water and wastewater, and I think I mentioned this at the June report that I'm very accustomed to seeing the expenses are higher than anticipated because of the fact that the timing between the revenues and the expenses are different. The billings. The meters are read at the end of the month, and then the billing's sent out. So there's a difference in timing from when the revenues come in and the expenses come in. For example, the water treatment plant, the water treatment and distribution, to have that come up to 58%, it would be about $180,000, which I conferred with the water department would be a normal monthly billing cycle. Wastewater treatment at 38%. They also have a timing difference, but they have a bit of a change up in their revenues this year. As everybody here knows, you're all ratepayers, so you know in that bill you've got that fixed portion, and then you've got the variable portion. So the variable portion was higher than anticipated so far at this point of the year. So that's why you see it only at 38% instead of the 99%, because there has been more usage of sanitary, or the wastewater treatment plant in the first 7 months of the year. So the billings, there is still the same delay as water, or timing difference as there is in water, but because of the fact that their variable use was up considerably, that knocked it down from the 99% to the 38%. And I have no doubt that we'll be on track towards the end of the year for that. And usually I'm used to seeing that kind of true up at the end of the year once we've kind of gotten past January and all that final billings come in. At this point, we don't anticipate that there's going to be an overage. We're anticipating that water and wastewater will be on track. So when you adjust out the property tax revenues to 7 months, knocking out 7.8 million, adjusting the PILs. Again, we received the majority of them in one shot. And then the DBA, it knocks it down from quite a significant looking surplus at this point, and which is not realistic because of the fact that we received so many revenues up front, to something that's a little bit more realistic of a surplus of what we're looking at this point. I anticipate that we're not going to end up with a large surplus like that at the end of the year. I think that's just where we are as far as our timing of revenues. When you think back to the administration, we actually dropped from 25% usage down to 17%, again, because of the timing of the revenues. So I don't anticipate we're going to be having such a large surplus when we hit the end of the year. My estimates at this point is we're going to be on track, and we might have a small, tidy little surplus, but nothing is what's projected here.
Thank you for your thorough explanations. I appreciate that. Any questions?
Sure.
Councilor McKenna?
Thanks. Director Dub, do you know off the top of your head what that insurance bill is for the corporation? It's big. I keep thinking 5 million for some reason, but
No, I don't believe it's 5 million. It's
not 5. Sorry.
I think it's
500,000,
yeah.
okay.
That sounds a little bit closer.
So that'll ripple through and
Yeah, and that'll certainly change. I mean, if you were to put that in there right now, what it's showing here is that would knock that projected surplus in half right away. Yeah.
it's not 5 million yet.
No.
No, okay, good. And you used a really, really cool term, which I hadn't heard from finance people. You're going to true it up. True up. I think I know what it means. Do you remember saying?
Yeah, I do. And it's from my days when I used to be a building framer. I used to build houses a long time ago. So it's kind of a carryover from that. What I mean by true it up is that we should see it coming closer to alignment. Of course, any budget is an estimate of revenues and expenses. So we're never going to be exactly on target.
Yeah.
But it's our best shot, or our best taking the information that we have to make our best estimates. So that we're charging enough on our taking into account all of the other revenues that come in, and then taking our best estimates to make sure that we're applying the tax levy in a way that will meet all the expenses, but not charge too much to the residents, so that we're not overcharging. And that's always the goal. And in this, I think when I say true up, I guess that's what I'm getting at. By the end of the year, we're going to see that to be quite a bit closer to that gap between the budget and what the actual expenses are. That we should see that come closer and closer together as we get towards the year end.
I wanted you to know I was listening carefully.
Oh, very good, very good.
Councilor Brennan?
Yeah, I like that 1.3. That's nice, and I understand that that's not going to be our end game here. But just so everyone understands, we're not allowed to run a deficit in the municipality, unlike our provincial and federal cousins. So it looks like you're doing a great job. I look forward to a surplus, and I understand it's not going to be quite that big, but I think you said a healthy little surplus.
Yeah.
So that would be good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Manager Grenke, new building bylaw report.
Thank you, and good evening. I'm pleased to bring forward for Council's consideration on behalf of Chief Building Official Andrew Willows a new building bylaw, which replaces the 2005 version that we've been using for about 20 years. The Ontario Building Code Act is the legislative framework governing the construction, renovation, and change of use of a building in the province of Ontario. Section 7 of the Act allows for a municipality to pass a bylaw allowing a municipality to set operational processes and requirements for the administration of our responsibilities under the Act. As our current bylaw has been in place for about 20 years, and given that practices, technologies, and industry expectations, both within our community as well as industry-wide, have evolved, staff identified an opportunity to refresh the bylaw and modernize its provisions. In this case, that would be carried forward administratively in a new bylaw that repeals and repeats the old bylaw. As noted in the report, the updated bylaw seeks to do several things, all of which are intended to result in a document that's easier to use by staff, our stakeholders, the public, and others, as well as provide some terms and clarifications to ensure that expectations are clear. So typically, as an operational document, these bylaws are often refreshed once per term of council, or at least fairly regularly. In this case, it's been quite some time, so certainly our CBO was eager to get this in place. Several definitions have been removed to align with the Building Code Act, whereas others have been added to reflect changing requirements in building practice. Operationally, Section 3 in the proposed bylaw, which relates to permit applications, has seen some significant changes as we now weave electronic submission and documentation into our administration practice. We have a formal process now for tract housing, such as when we get a number of different units with an existing freehold units in an existing townhouse development, for example, and have a provision regarding the cancellation of stale applications and address third-party reviews. One other administrative change proposed in the bylaw is that the fee schedule is proposed to be removed from the building bylaw and added to the town's fee schedule bylaw for ease of administration and to centralize the process. So the building bylaw simply refers to the fees being subject to the fees bylaw, and certainly in the event of right now fees are being determined based on percentages of declared building costs, and the building official has the ability to request documentation or itemize that to support the calculation of fees. At present, our recommendation is that the fees bylaw be amended to include the provisions for the building fees that will be pulled out of the building bylaw and into the fees bylaw. So at such time that council updates the fees, then we'd have the opportunity for building fees as well as any other fee that the town charges to be updated. The draft bylaw has been reviewed by the town's development solicitor, with the final product incorporating that review. Our department is confident that this operational document reflects the operational needs and processes, and we bring forward the recommendation that council adopts the new building bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGuire.
Madam Chair, thanks, Carol. I really like the language and the ideas going into this from the description. I don't know a lot about our existing building bylaws, so I was wondering, is this a complete rewrite? Is it minor edits to different sections, or how extensive of a change does this represent?
Go ahead.
It's Councillor. It's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. So there's some definitions, some provisions are carried forward, but rather than create a track changes document where a lot of pieces have been sort of moved or reformatted or reordered, it was viewed as administratively simpler just to repeal and replace with the new one. So that the processes haven't been entirely overhauled. There's a lot of the processes are fairly standardized. We've certainly put a little bit of meat on the bones in terms of some of the definitions and some of the expectations, really to create some clarity. But I think a lot of it is simply reordered to be more user-friendly, easier to read, and easier to use.
A follow-up, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Have we consulted with builders in our community about the changes?
Our CBO advises that he has not reached out to builders in the community to consult. It's the document, the building bylaw, is largely operational in nature. He's not anticipating that this would create a significant change for them beyond simply working with the newer terms and definitions.
Okay, thanks. I'd be interested in getting some consultation just because I'm nervous with past policies we put through and then we get pushback after they're approved. So, and maybe there's some ideas out there that might be easy to implement in this round of edits. So my preference would be to do some consultation with builders in the community to get their feedback.
So it's my understanding that this will be at least a week or more before it comes forward to council. Would this buy some time for feedback from our community partners?
With council's direction, we'll certainly take council's direction on that, but I would imagine we can undertake some outreach with our stakeholders.
Thoughts on that, Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. But I think what I was hearing was the CBO feels that this is going to be user-friendly to the builders, as you said, clear and concise, more so than a 20-year-old bylaw. So was that the advice of the CBO?
Yes, that was the advice of the CBO.
Okay, so I'm happy with it now. If my colleagues want to prolong it, I'm fine with that. But I'm happy to support replacing the 20-year-old bylaw.
Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions, kind of related, because I see this bylaw as a very outward-facing kind of bylaw. It's almost like it's very service-focused. You know, if anybody doing any building, renovating, demolition, this would be their go-to to how to do that. So along those lines, I wondered about, would a table of contents at the front of this be useful, and would council like to see that? Because if we're doing it, you could just go right to the one you're interested in. It's my first thought. And the second one is, I saw how you would, how the public could file a formal complaint, and that's good. There was nothing about an appeal process that I could find anywhere. Maybe I missed it. If someone, I understand how you could complain, but that's not the same as an appeal. Is there a section in there that I missed? And what are I'm assuming there's an appeal process, but I don't know the Building Act as well as you. So, and I'm open to, if it's practical, if it's not a difficult thing to reach out to some of our builders, I'm not opposed to asking them for their thoughts. As long as it's legislated, so we're not going to be changing the building code. So as long as they know that. So I thought the table of contents, and could you speak to if there is a way to appeal a decision?
Certainly, I would, through you, Madam Chair, I think I'd rely on the expertise of our CBO and his workings with the Ontario Building Code Act as it relates to the procedural element regarding complaints and appeals. So I can double back with him, and I will advise you on that. In terms of table of contents, I think that looks like a fairly straightforward and easy to accomplish improvement in the document. We can certainly accommodate that.
Thank you. Okay, so we have more questions, but in the meantime, we've got suggestions on the table of contents, feedback from developers, and an appeal process. Mayor Panko, you had something else?
Yeah, and I'm too supportive. I think it's a great, long overdue modernization and updating of the bylaw. But Carl, can you, in the end, do you see this, and does our CBO see this as an easier, simpler, more straightforward process for applicants? And is it also something that's going to make life easier for our staff and time saver for staff? So
certainly, through you, Madam Chair, our expectation and hope in working with it is that it does. The CBO has brought this forward as he feels that this is more accurately reflects changes to the industry. As an example, with and just to get into operations a little bit, the freehold townhomes that are getting built in Parkview Homes, for a variety of reasons, the building department has determined that it would make most sense to require one permit per door, as these ultimately are going to be sold and lived in separately. That's not within the current building bylaw. That's wasn't even thought of when the current building bylaw was written. So things like that we've picked up, and in a way it's almost like a housekeeping provision that we've picked up as time moves on. Ultimately, the building division and the subdivision developer they've arrived at the best process. They're moving forward based on that process, but the bylaw, what it attempts to do is just catch these little, where there are these points of vagueness or related to electronic submissions where it's really not covered at all. I think the hope and expectation moving forward is that it would be clearer to the developers, clearer to staff to outline. I think in our estimation, I think the clarity is the most important thing. So there isn't that gray area in discussions at the application stage about what a requirement is, what needs to be, and what it is that we're expecting from somebody.
Okay, eliminate some of that vagueness. So the thing too is I'm supportive, but if there's an opportunity for some consultation with or send it out to stakeholders, I mean, there could be watching tonight, but just as an opportunity for feedback until it actually comes to council for approval, and fine with that too.
Great, thank you, and please pass on our thanks to Mr. Willows for his work on this. It's a big job, I'm sure. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify council's direction, council would like to see some outreach to our stakeholders in the building community to obtain any feedback. Is there a particular form of consultation you would like to see, or would you like to leave that to our staff's discretion?
That to operations to determine, and the table of contents and the appeal process. Those were the 3 items.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's it for priority issues. Do we have any committee, board, and external organizational updates? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to update everybody about the Railway Museum. Last Saturday, Mayor Pankow, Councillor Miller, and myself attended a media release event at the Railway Museum of Eastern Ontario. They received a grant from the federal government in the amount of $150,000 for their new STEAM rail project. STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. And this project, which will be housed in a refurbished, I believe it was a 1919 rail car. And, it's old. And it will be fully accessible exhibit, which is designed to provide educational enrichment and hands-on learning for kids, young and old. The plan is to have this up and running by spring of 2025. And I'd just like to say congratulations to Becky and her team for all the hard work in order to make that happen.
Thank you. Okay. So we are preparing to move into an in-camera session about a proposed pending acquisition or disposition of land. We have a recommended motion moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor McGuire, the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls, as provided in Section 2392C of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, move into a closed meeting at 5:48 p.m. to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. All in favor? Carried. We'll be back shortly. We're on. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. While we were in our in-camera meeting, we discussed proposed pending acquisition of disposition of land. We have no correspondence items, no notice of motions. I'm looking for Councillor Robinson, who will move that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:16 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.